low lunge. So on my front leg, my ankle is in dorsiflexion, my knee is in flexion, my hip is in flexion, my hip is also in AB, abduction, in an attempt to help bring my pelvis into a forward-facing neutral position. And my pelvis, I'm trying to bring my pelvis into more of a posterior tilt in order to keep length in my lower back. To do this, I've brought the stance between my front leg and my back knee closer together so that I have more capability of bringing my pelvis into posterior tilt. Because if I take my back leg back further and I get more of an extension on that back leg, then I find it more difficult to bring my pelvis into line, and it wants to go naturally into more of an anterior tilt. And then, just so you can see, this side, my back leg, my ankle is in plantar flexion, my knee is in flexion, my hip now is in adduction, so bringing it in order, again, to bring my pelvis into a neutral position, and my hip is actually in extension. So in this posture, I find it more challenging to bring my pelvis into posterior tilt. I also find it challenging to bring my hip into extension due to tight hip flexors, and I also find it challenging on this back leg to bring my hip into adduction, bringing my pelvis into neutral. So the exercises I've done for this are adduction. I've come into the low lunge and I'm just going to loosen everything off as I have a sort of a twist, and then isometrically engaging my adduction muscles, I come back round, bringing my pelvis forward, engaging these adductors, and then again loosening and engaging, loosening and engaging. And then in my hip extension, I come into a soft lunge and pressing down into the grounded knee. Pressing down, I'm just going to extend that back leg, and if I press down into this knee, I can really engage my hip flexors here, and then release and come back in, and release and come back in. And then for movement of my pelvis for posterior tilt, I'm just going to practice movement of my pelvis, anterior tilt, lowering the front of my pelvic bone, and then posterior tilt, tucking my pelvis under, anterior tilt, front of the pelvis drops down, posterior tilt, front of the pelvis comes up towards the ribs, and I'm just going to bring mobility into that area. And these exercises help me to come into low lunge.